Welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about the movie that proves some costumes are more than just a joke. Just imagine your body suddenly turns into a demonic clown. That's what happens to Kent, a real estate agent who buys and sells houses. It's his son Jack's birthday, and his wife Meg has hired a clown for the party because Jack loves them. But when the clown cancels at the last minute, Meg asks Kent to wear a costume to make Jack happy. Kent finds an old clown costume in a trunk at a house he recently bought. He quickly puts it on and goes to the party where he has a great time with the kids. After the party, he puts Jack to bed and then sits on the sofa with Meg. She's so happy that she asks him to change his costume quickly because she has some big news for him. But as soon as Meg leaves, Kent falls into a deep sleep. The next morning, Meg wakes him up and asks him to take Jack to school because they are running late. Kent doesn't have time to change, so he just tries to wash his face. But the makeup won't come off, no matter how much he scrubs. With no time left, he just takes Jack to school. After dropping Jack off, he goes to his empty house, where some workers are waiting for him. They don't recognize him in the clown costume. He tells them, "Don't you recognize the owner?" He puts them to work and goes to the bathroom again, trying to remove the makeup. It's no use. Getting angry, he tries to pull off the fake nose and wig, but they are stuck too. In a fit of rage, he tries to tear the costume off with all his strength, but it won't budge. He then grabs a blade to cut the costume, but he accidentally cuts his wrist. It starts to bleed. He bandages his wrist and grabs a small saw from the worker's room. He puts the saw to his neck and tries to cut the costume from the inside, but the saw breaks instead. Kent is now worried and goes home. Meg is surprised to see him still in the costume and asks why he hasn't taken it off. He tells her the whole story, but she thinks he's joking. She tries to pull off his fake nose with her medical tools, but it's so stuck that it makes Kent's real nose bleed. In the struggle, the fake nose falls off and their pet dog eats it. Then Meg sees that the wig has become part of his real hair. Kent goes to the hospital to get his nose treated. When he comes home, he's incredibly hungry. He eats everything in the house, but his stomach is still rumbling. The next morning, Meg finds the kitchen in a mess and a note from Kent saying he's going to find a solution. He goes back to the old house, calls the company, and finds out the last owner was Martin Carlson, who is now dead. He sees a child looking at him and his stomach rumbles again, even though he just ate a lot. He finds a man named Bert Carlson, Martin's brother. Bert invites him in for tea and starts telling him the history of the costume. He says that hundreds of years ago, a man with white skin and a red nose lived in the snowy mountains. He would bring 5 children to his cave every winter and eat one each month to survive. After hearing this, Kent feels dizzy and faints. When he wakes up, Bert gives him a special tea again, says the only way to stop the demon inside him is to cut off parts of his body. Kent frees himself, and in the struggle, Bert's knife stabs him in the shoulder. Kent gets angry, grabs the knife, and holds a gun to Bert's head. Bert reveals that the costume isn't just a costume, it's the skin of a demon. Kent goes home and tells Meg the whole story, asking her to call the police. He shows her his shoulder wound, saying, Bert thinks a demon is growing inside him. He tells her not to tell anyone or they will think he's crazy, but Meg's family, who is sitting on the sofa, has heard everything. Her father-in-law asks what's wrong. To prove he's telling the truth, Kent shows them his shoulder and takes them to his car where he has Bert tied up. Everyone thinks Kent has gone crazy and kidnapped an innocent man. Meg's brother tries to pull off Kent's wig, and Kent breaks his arm. This scares Meg and Jack. Not wanting to scare them anymore, Kent decides to take Bert to the police. On the way, strange changes happen to his body. His fingers and legs become very long. Bert sees his chance and strangles Kent with his handcuffs, causing the car to crash into a wall. Kent gets out without a scratch. He pulls out Bert and asks why he's doing this. An injured Bert says, "Before it's too late, you have to sacrifice your life." Then he faints. Kent sees 2 children in another car and his stomach rumbles again. He runs into the jungle. In the jungle, Kent finds a boy washing dishes. He asks for food, and the boy gives him a biscuit. But as soon as the boy gets close, Kent grabs him and bites his fingers. The next morning, Meg tells Jack's school principal not to let him go home with Kent. At the same time, Kent's real teeth fall out, and he decides to hide in his empty house. When he gets there, he finds a child talking to him. Kent's stomach rumbles, but he locks himself in the house, fighting his hunger. At home, Meg's dog is acting strange after eating the fake nose. Kent calls her, apologizes for everything, and says he has no choice now. Before hanging up, Kent goes to a hardware store and buys a saw. Meg goes to find him and sees him going back to the old house. The child from before returns to the house, and a trap Kent set with the saw blade kills him instantly. At first, Kent feels bad, but then his hunger takes over and he eats the child. Meg arrives and tries to open the locked door. Kent screams at her not to come in because she'll see the truth. Meg calms him down and says she trusts him and just wants to take him home. This time, Kent doesn't answer. She tells him, "I need you. Please open the door and come with me." She reveals that she is pregnant and he's going to be a father again. This was the good news she was going to tell him the day he put on the costume. After hearing this, Kent opens the door and leaves with her, leaving the child's bones behind. When they get home, Kent tells Meg he's changing and asks her to tie him up with chains so he can't get out. She does as he asks but is confused. She starts reading Bert's book and sees a picture of the Carlson brothers, with Bert wearing the costume. She goes to the hospital to see Bert, who can't speak, so he writes, "Where is Kent?" He says he can help him, but Meg doesn't want to tell him the truth. Bert warns her not to trust Kent for now. Meg gets angry and shows him the picture, asking where he got the costume. Bert gets upset, and the nurse makes Meg leave. Meg goes back to the old house to find the truth. She sees a camera on a chair and starts watching the recording. At the same time, Jack is at school missing his dad. A bully named Colton teases him, puts glue on his hands, and Jack bites him before running home. Jack looks for his mother, but Kent hears his voice and realizes Meg isn't there. He calls Jack to the basement, where Jack sees Kent chained up. The innocent child doesn't realize it's a demon in his father's body. Jack complains about Colton. Meanwhile, Meg is watching the recording, which shows the clown and a doctor. She takes the camera with her and goes to Jack's school, but finds he has already left. Scared that Jack will go to Kent, she rushes home but finds Jack safely on the sofa. She asks him why he came home early, where his father is. We see Colton playing video games at home. He feels someone behind him and grabs his nunchucks. Kent appears and Colton asks, "Did Jack come with you?" Kent attacks him and the demon kills him and eats him raw. Meg is leaving the house with Jack when she sees her dog isn't tied up. The dog has also become a demon. It runs to attack Meg, but Bert suddenly appears and kills the dog. Meg is shocked, but Bert calms her down and asks where Kent is. Bert shows her his fake teeth and tells her the story. He got the costume from Iceland and wore it to cheer up children in the hospital. His brother Martin, a doctor at the same hospital, saw him turning into a demon and found a cure to save Bert. Martin sacrificed 5 sick children to the demon. The demon then took the costume off Bert's body. Bert has spent years looking for a way to get rid of the curse, and Martin hid the costume. Meg says Kent would never hurt a child, but Bert shows her the hand of the boy from the jungle with his fingers bitten off. He asks where Kent is, and Jack says he went to Colton's house. Meg leaves Jack with her father and goes with Bert to Colton's house. They find half of Colton's body on the floor, but no sign of Kent. Meg realizes Kent might be at an adventure park and goes there with Bert. She tells Bert to wait outside and goes in. Inside a toy tunnel, a child is looking for his brother. He sees bloodstains and then sees the demon, Kent, trying to eat his brother. The boy screams, ready to sacrifice himself to save his brother. Kent attacks him, and the boy's blood flows down a slide. This causes chaos, and Meg comes looking for Kent. Bert pulls her into the kitchen, shows her the blood, and tells her to follow it. They find Kent, and Meg says they're there to help. Bert hits Kent in the head with an axe, which makes him look more like a demon. Kent attacks Bert, but Meg begs him to spare his life. Kent stops and tells Meg that only one child is left, and if she doesn't bring him the last child, he will eat Jack. The police arrive, and Meg runs away while they arrest Bert. Meg calls her father and tells him to run away with Jack. She sees a lost child and hangs up going to the child. The child's mother comes and hugs her. Meg then gets in her car and decides what to do next. A girl asks for a ride, and Meg agrees. This is her last chance. She takes the girl to a deserted place, wakes her up, and pushes her out of the car. A policeman comes and stops Meg. She realizes that the demon must have gone after Jack. She rushes to her father's house, but when she gets there, The clown has already killed her father. Meg, in shock, runs to the garage and grabs a hammer to defend herself. She waits for Kent, but Jack starts to come downstairs. She tells him to go back up. Kent appears and Meg hits him with the hammer. He doesn't care and takes the hammer from her. He then starts to try and get the child from her stomach. Meg screams at Jack to run, but the door is locked, so Jack hides under the stairs. Kent is bleeding and he starts looking for Jack. Meg grabs a knife and cuts his throat, but it's not enough to stop him. Kent attacks her and knocks her unconscious. He finds Jack, but the space is too small for him to get in. He leaves, and Jack, thinking he's gone, comes out. Kent attacks him, but just as he's about to grab Jack, Meg wakes up and chains him. Meg is about to finish him, but she hears Kent's real voice from inside the demon asking for help. She still thinks she can save him and asks Jack to get the book in chains. Jack says he isn't his father. The Joker realizes his plan won't work and attacks Meg. Meg kills him for the last time. Different colored blood flows from his body. She hugs Jack tightly, but the demon's hand grabs Jack's leg. Meg cuts the last remaining veins and the clown's body disappears, leaving only Kent's head and the costume behind. A tragic reminder of the loving father who lost his battle against a cursed suit. And that's the end of this horrifying story.